Titan II missile site located outside of Tucson, Arizona, and I'm going to show it to you today. So they have a walking path here, which is good for wheelchairs and people that need help getting in here. There's where I'm parked over there, plenty of parking. They have these storyboards over here. And so this was a missile site, was manned back during the Cold War. If you remember, we had missiles on standby. These were nuclear missiles. And they were all located out in remote areas here in Arizona. They actually had 18 of them in southern Arizona, and they were located outside of what is now called the Ironwood Forest National Monument. Here's the storyboard showing the monument. Right here is the monument, created in 2000, and this is Missile Site 570-3. That's where we're at today. They give a little information on the Ironwood Monument and the critters that live out here. And then we go on to the storyboards talking about the Titan II missile. A proud place in history. So in the late 1950s, these thermonuclear weapons were developed. And then deactivation began on the Titan II sites in southern Arizona in September of 1982. Nationwide deactivation was complete in 1987. So that was 25 years after the Titan II missile program began, well past the initial projection of 10 years. Okay, deactivation involved removing the warhead, unloading their propellant, and removing the missile. The missile's nuclear components were reintegrated into the national stockpile,
Well, the facility's metal and other equipment were salvaged for reuse. Now, this was an underground silo, right? And so the blast doors were welded shut, air vents were filled with grout, and the access portal was filled with rubble. Top of the silo was destroyed with explosives, and remains were capped with a concrete disc. Silo cap was then buried, and the surface was regraded to approximately natural contours. The sites were then sold at public auction, and private citizens purchased most of them. So the Air Force had a total of 54 missiles. Here's a picture of when they actually blew this one up, destroying the missile silo. And then here's some pictures of the crews that worked. There were 2 officers and 2 enlisted that worked 24-hour shifts. Now there's actually a picture here of the missile as it looked down in the silo. It was 103 feet tall and 10 feet in diameter. So here's where the 54 missiles were deployed. 4 different bases around the country. And again, that was during the Cold War. They do note that no missiles were ever launched from this site, which is good. Here's a shot 103 feet in length. They weighed 327,000 pounds, 150 kilograms, 150,000 kilograms. Had a 9 megaton warhead on them. They were accurate within 1 statute mile. I guess with a 9 megaton warhead, you could get close enough to pretty well destroy anything within a mile anyway. And it had some really harsh chemicals for the fuel propellant. So terrifying was the prospect of the use of nuclear weapons. President John Kennedy later said, "Mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind." Deterrence then became the primary mission of nuclear weapons, so they were built for deterrence. So we're at a launch complex here, right? Here's a board that shows what that looks like. You can see where we are in relation to the complex. So we're up at the surface level, and then they had level 9 all the way down to level 9, and there's where the missile was. So this site 570-3 was self-contained, located largely underground, staffed 24 hours a day for more than 20 years by 4 Air Force personnel working in shifts. The facility was designed to withstand attack and remain ready to launch at any moment. So this construction of this site, 570-3, occurred between December 1960 and May 63, so it took almost 3.5 years to construct this site. All right, so we'll take a walk around. They have a walking path, and we'll see what's left here. It is a gravel, I guess, chip sealed asphalt walking path. And there are some storyboards here. showing where all the components were. So there were fuel stands, cableways, of course communication gear, and there was a security fence around the whole thing. If you come here to visit this site, make sure you carry water, wear a hat, and watch for rattlesnakes. We have rattlesnakes here. Okay, the launch silo was right in front of us. Get out of the way here. The silo was approximately 150 feet deep and 60 feet in diameter. The facility was protected by a massive rolling door made of concrete and steel and could be fully opened in just 20 seconds. Inside the silo were 9 separate levels filled with equipment required to keep the missile in a constant state of readiness. So there's not a whole lot left. You can see some concrete pads, which were at this site the base for the radio antennas, which they received their instructions and orders. If they needed to launch, they would come across the radio. So continuing to walk. I'm going to walk over here. There's something here. Another concrete pad. You can see where they cut with a torch whatever was here. May have been part of the antenna system. Not much left. It's kind of cutting through the middle of it here. There's one large concrete pad over here, which you can see coming up. I believe this is what they called a hard stand back then, which is where they did their fueling and defueling. Let's go look at the sign, we'll find out. Here's the sign. Yep. This is where they loaded the propellant. So the propellant arrived in tank trucks, was transferred to a holding trailer, was cooled, and then loaded onto the missile. Propellant was highly toxic, handled by teams wearing protective suits. You can see that team member there with his suit on. That looked like some wicked stuff. You can see there's still a couple of markings here. There must have been tie-down points. And that rise that you see if I can point that out to you. See where that rise is right there, that soil is piled up there? That's where the actual silo itself was, where the missile itself went down inside. So they've got it capped and they put a whole mess of soil on top of it. There's a few other concrete pads around, but they're not marked. And you know how these facilities were, they had a lot of buildings and things around. So they just marked the important ones. It's kind of windy out here today. That one looks like it had some pipes or fencing. Communications, it looks like. That looks like a communication cable. Never again, everything was cut off, destroyed. But I'm glad they preserved it because we need to show our kids the weaponry we had back during the Cold War. All right, thanks for watching.